Thurston put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
Good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, the 6th of May, 2025. You're back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast with your hosts, Zach and Toby. Zach at this end, Toby at that end. Brought to you as always by Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They will not steer you wrong, bestongrounddigital.com. I need to take a breath, Toby. How you going, champion?
Mate, you were on a roll there. I just wanted to keep going.
Whoa, how's that for an intro?
Whoa. Pretty good. And as to answer your question, I'm pretty good. Two wins on the trot again. So, might not have been a convincing victory, but 2 points is 2 points. So, and to see it live was both extremely frustrating and quite enjoyable.
Yeah, so tell me, mate, live at the game, I guess, how did you walk away from it, or what were your sort of takeaways from having watched it live?
Boys need to learn how to wrap up the ball, and the first contact was shithouse, but our scramble defence was great. So that's what I took from it. What I also took from it was, I know he's just re-signed for 3 years, but re-signed Buller for another 10. He was phenomenal. God, he was good. I thought the first half we dominated, and we dominated well. I think the second half we didn't come out of the sheds until the 20th till 20 minutes left. So yeah, that's what I took from the live game. In terms of the atmosphere at the live game, it died off really quickly after the Warriors-Cowboys game. That was intense and awesome to be a part of, I'll say that much.
Cowboys coming back to get him?
No, it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the Warriors fans. We were sitting with them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they were so good. I had no emotional investment in the game whatsoever. I had some green on it. I had some money on it, but I didn't have any emotional investment until an absolute twat of a Cowboys supporter a few rows in front of us just pissed me off. So I started really going for the Warriors and trying to give it to him. So that was fun.
Oh, good. So you got a bit of a double victory on there.
I did.
Mate, how'd you find the whole experience? You've been to Magic Round before?
I go to Magic Round every year. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. I never do the 3 days anymore because my old man comes up for it from Coffs Harbour and he buys the tickets, so I have to do what he says. He only wants to do the Saturday. Yeah, he likes to not have to deal with Monday traffic in Brisbane, so he drives home on Sundays. So yeah, it's great. I love it. I think it's an awesome spectacle. It's really cool to because there's a lot of teams that you'll probably never see live just by sheer chance we don't live in Sydney. And we can only see games basically when we only go see games when the Tigers play a Queensland team. So, seen the Warriors, I think, once live. Yep. And that was at Leichhardt. Never seen the Cowboys live. Really wanted to throw something at John Bateman, but I was too high up. Seen the Bunnies live. I've seen the Knights live. So just Cowboys was the one I hadn't seen. So
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So how many games did you get to see in the end?
3. We were just Saturday night.
Yeah, right.
My brother went Sunday as well. And I think he was quite what's the best way of putting that? He was quite terped up by the end of it. He was having
terped up. Okay, I can glean what you might be referring to there. I've never heard of it called terped up before, but
I just coined that.
I can read between the lines. You might you might want to word mark that one perhaps.
I think so. I think I've got that. But yeah, no, it was he had a 2-day bender, and Yeah, it's a big day. Like, we have my 11-year-old nephew, and he did well, but it's a big day. So doing 3 days of that would be pretty intense, actually.
Mm.
Especially, I don't drink, so especially if you were drinking, that'd be really hard.
Oh, I would be.
Oh, you would be. You would be.
Oh, yeah, no worries about that. We were talking about it on the weekend, and I was thinking, very likely people aren't there for all day though. You'd watch some footy, you'd come back, you'd maybe float up for a couple of beers at the Caxton, or you'd shoot across and grab a bite to eat or something nearby. Then maybe you go back, you watch the second half of one of the games, and then you head towards the game that your team's playing. So I'd imagine people would be sort of coming and going, over the course of the whole weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that's been to basically any stadium in Australia, you know how expensive the beers are, and the fact that you're drinking mid-strength anyway. That would definitely be probably a thing a lot of people are doing, because they give out, pass visits and things like that, so you can just go out and come back in. But yeah, no, it's definitely, again, going again next year, on the Saturday, obviously, but then I'll probably buy myself another ticket whatever days the Tigers playing, if they're not playing Saturday. So
Yeah. We'll see how we go. Let's get back to the game, mate. So 34-28, obviously, we beat the Dargans there at Suncorp Stadium on the weekend.
Excuse me.
6 tries to 5 in the end. Possession ended at 50% a slice. Completion rates comparable in the high 70s. All runs comparable. They got us by 100 in the run meters. Everything else as we moved down relatively comparable. Big standouts, tackle breaks, 42 to them, 16 to us, and line breaks, 12 to 2 to the Dragons. That's a lot of line breaks. Average set distances within 1.5 meters of one another, and the rest of the stats relatively even, with the exception of the effective tackle count. The Dragons tackle quite well. They evidently, it seems as though they made more tackles. I find it that hard to believe, but that's what it's saying here. But they tackled at 91%, we tackled at 82%. So we got the win. So, mate, for the most part there, it seems as though the Dragons won the stats. If they weren't even, they were won by the Dragons. So what were your main couple of little takeaways? Have you watched the game back since?
Yeah, I've just watched a KO mini. But that tackle efficiency doesn't surprise me, as I mentioned. First up contact was shit house.
Yeah.
That it sort of started, a lot of it. Not like, I'm not saying that he was the reason it started, but I got quite upset with Terrell May and missing that first up contact on Moses Sully, which led to the first try. That really, really annoyed me. Moses Sully is big. He's powerful. Yeah, it's true. But you're a fronty. You're strong as well. Very strong.
I think if we're going to cut some slack on people, I think Terrell May, given how well he's been tackling, is probably one of them. He missed 3, I think, from memory. We'll look at the stats a little bit closer in detail shortly.
Yeah,
but
it's constructive criticism. It's constructive criticism.
But I was just going to say that 2 of the 3 were pretty key misses in that first up contact. I think there was another one in the second half that led to a line break as well down the centre. So, look, it happens. And it does happen. It was a slippery day and whatnot.
So that makes me also think, is he starting to burn out a little bit? That makes me think. If you think about it, his first up contact in that game was not what we've come to expect. And it was very early in the game. Very early in the game. So, time will tell. We'll see what happens this week. But yeah, that was definitely something that annoyed me quite substantially. And then another thing that annoyed me was sort of our communication out wide. Taruva got stood up, but that's mainly because him and Naden weren't communicating about who was going for who. So
yeah.
that was
I'm
obviously talking about the Holmes individual try.
Yeah. Look, for me on that, just to segue off what you're talking about on the edges there, I think that our defensive issues are simply down to the fact that we're missing the combinations that we have seen work so well. Yeah. When you've got Stafford and Taruva out one side, and when you've got Dewey and it's had a few partners out there, but Dewey and Skelton ideally out the other side. when they've played together, the structures look good and the connection looks good and they're sticky. Since we've had, especially Naden, come into that centre role, he's someone who's more of a renegade and he'll go outside of structure defensively. It's problematic. So, and I think we've seen it fall apart from there. You know, we saw when Naden himself was on the wing, things worked a lot better. And then they functioned a lot better because you can do a lot less damage out there. And if you do shoot and you do run renegade and go in early, your defenders can get around the back. So, yeah, the issue with those edges, I think, comes down to that fact. And we've got to be better than that with our systems. But obviously, the starting players, being the ones that I just mentioned, those four that I mentioned on those edges, I think that part of the reason perhaps that they're starting is that they do stick to that structure so well. And we've seen defensively their ability to uphold and slide has been vastly improved. And as soon as we miss one or two of those combinations, it does look a little bit 2022, 3, 4.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's hard to argue with that. But yeah, like I said, that annoyed me. And then just letting in some soft tries. That little first crash over. That was laziness by Polo. Pure laziness. And he's been getting that out of his system. He's been phenomenal. Do not get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. He has been phenomenal. And if he's added to the Blues extended squad, he wouldn't look out of place at all. But there was just little moments there where, yeah.
Did you say Pole?
I did.
Pole's he's not eligible because he's Victorian, born and bred.
Yeah, but so Victorians literally can't play Origin, okay?
No, that's and unless they change it. But that's my understanding.
I swear I read somewhere that he could be eligible and he could be selected.
I don't think so, but happy to be wrong. Yeah, look, on the Pole thing, he was poor. He was poor.
He wasn't at the standard he's been setting for the last month.
Yeah, but that's all right. You know, people are there to have off game. You mentioned about Terrell. I think you're very quick to jump and jump a few steps down the road and saying, "Oh, is he sort of starting to run out of steam or whatever?" I just think that people can just have off games, and I think it behooves us to mention that in the last however long we had three games in 13 days or something. One of them was a big Golden Point win against the Sharks that we had to get up for. Before that was the emotional ride with the Galvin situation, that Parramatta game, and the week that came with that. So, but the boys are entitled to be a bit tired and have an off game, and let's hope that it's a recalibration and we can sort of reload. I know we've got Melbourne this week. It almost comes at a good time in a way because there's very little pressure on us heading down there, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, yeah, like I don't disagree with any of that. I think, and I mentioned it last week on the pod that one of the challenges I did feel was going to be backing up from such a big game against the Sharks. It takes it out of you a lot, emotionally, mentally, not just physically. So there's no disputing that. It's just those little things that I brought up, and some of them weren't little, but some of them were, are really, it's kind of like really frustrating because of the standard we've been setting. And again, comes down to new combinations out wide. It comes down, and when I say new combinations out wide, I actually thought Charlie Staines was great. I thought he was great on the wing.
He was.
I thought him and Dewey really worked well together. Unfortunately, it's Naden again. And this is, again, I say unfortunately because I had such high hopes from him at the start of the season. But he can really disrupt that edge. He really can, defensively. So, but, you know, I've talked about the things that I didn't like about it, this game. I'm going to talk about the things I did like.
Yep.
One, we obviously won, and that's great. 2 points. You know, first time in 6 years. We've been 5-4 after 9 rounds, with 3 buys still left up our sleeve. So there's a really good chance we're actually going to finish in over 20 points for the first time in 6 years.
Well,
So
again, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but yeah, look, you're viewing it as a positive, and 100% it is. Look, what I want to say as well is that if Terrell May doesn't drop that football against the Warriors, we're in the top 4.
yeah,
So, because what it would be is the Warriors would be on 12 points. We've got a better for and against. We'd be on 12. We'd be tied with the Storm. They'd be in third. We'd be in fourth. So, we're one Terrell May drop ball away from being in the top 4. And you think back to the Newcastle game as well. You know, the boys still haven't, particularly as I keep saying, haven't played a full solid game of football. It doesn't seem as though they've
no.
played a full solid game of football yet. So, look,
I think it's
you know,
probably fair to say that Sharks was pretty close. That Sharks game. Because they're a top 4 side. They might not be in the top 4, but they're a top 4 side.
yeah, yes and no. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. They're a good side. They're probably a top 6 side, 6 to 8, yeah, I guess. But yeah, anyway, that's semantics. But yeah, the point being is I noticed that today that given where everyone is on the ladder, one Terrell May drop ball away from being in the top 4 after a third into the season.
And come on, how good is that?
How could you be disappointed with that when you put it in perspective? 5 and 4 sounds pretty good, and we're all pretty chuffed. We're going okay, but yeah, there's still a lot of improvement in the side. That's my silver lining. Is this side can still get way better? I reckon way better.
Well, I think it's kind of the trajectory that we're going is sort of aligning with the way that Luai is adapting to the team and the team's adapting to Luai. He was awesome on
Yeah.
Saturday. He was awesome.
Yeah.
He really stood up, and that's what we needed from him. We really needed him to stand up because 2 weeks ago he was your sink.
Yeah.
So
last week it was my bold prediction.
Yeah,
to take over and take the bull by the horns, and he did. And
he did.
I'm with you.
Like that.
He was my best on ground.
Yeah, for me it was Buller, but we'll get into lifts and sink later. But he that kick through for Sam.
Yep.
Oh, that curve right at the end. He knew that was going to happen. He knew that was coming.
Yeah, he kicked for it, obviously. Yeah,
absolutely. And the unfortunate thing is because he played so well, I thought Galvin didn't have a great game. Yeah, he had that nice deft touch for Staines' first try, but I thought defensively again he was poor. Made a couple of very poor decisions.
Yeah, but again, like I said, he wasn't alone, and I'm not trying to be the apologist tonight, but for me, it was more just a couple of moments there where, and I guess it's the youthful thing, and it's taking your chances, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. That tap on caused a try, but then, later on when we got a 6 again, rather than diving on the ball, he chose to try to flick it back, and we lost possession.
Not only lost possession, they sprinted for 40 metres.
Yeah. So
we lost territory as well.
And there's little moments like that. I guess you can't begrudge people for moments because they're, your decision making needs to be better there, I think. But that comes with maturity and time. So, yeah, I think Galvin was quiet a bit. I liked it. And it's no coincidence, I think, that in the first half, we probably looked as good as we've looked in terms of shape. And I think we're still missing a couple of pieces of the puzzle. Not least of all, we're missing Skelton on one wing, for starters.
And Toa in the other centre.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree. And, there's a lot of positives to take from that game. One no more than, I got to rub it into my old man because he's a Dragon supporter.
Yeah.
And I had a side bet with a good mate of mine who's a Dragon supporter at the game and won $160 from it. So happy days.
Half your luck. Can't be totally disappointed with that. All right, so mate, lift and sink, and then we'll get into running through the side and do a few individual breakdowns tonight. I think, mate. Who you lifting this week?
Buller. Yeah, I mentioned it before.
Yeah.
I thought Buller was in everything. He looked dangerous every time he touched the ball. Defensively, yes, he had that one-on-one miss with Val Holmes, but also momentum completely ripped him out of his grasp. So I thought he was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. So, what about you? Who was your lift? Oh yeah,
Excuse me, sorry. Luai. I think it appeared to me as if he's finally decided to step up and take some control of the side, and it's no coincidence that they look better. I don't know what you saw live. You get an opportunity to see much of his sort of marshalling of the troops and his organisation on the field, but I could notice off the ball. We always notice with him that he's doing a lot of it, but him perhaps overcalling Galvin a bit more as he should, and starting to move the puzzle pieces around was good. And, we're going to see Sam Weller benefit off the back of that too, I think, to no end.
absolutely. And yeah, I think it's, the Fox Sports came out with, and then apparently we lost Zach. Sorry, guys. Pause for a second, people. We're just sort of having some technical difficulties, but give me a sec. Zach just had to jump off and he'll come back on. I have no idea what happened to his browser, but hopefully he joins us soon. Who knows? Oh god, stage fright. I have no idea what to say here. Nah. All right, I may as well go through my sync. So my sync was, there's a couple there that kind of stood out to me, but I'm gonna go with Galvin. I'm gonna say Galvin, mainly because he made too many wrong choices for me, and he was getting it. He didn't look as carefree as he has in the past. It looked like he was getting frustrated. Now, that could just be because he was making the wrong decisions. That could be because he doesn't like to not be the chief playmaker. Who knows? You can speculate all you want, but yeah, he wasn't fantastic. He was definitely, it's hard to say. Like, you look at Luai and he was phenomenal, the chief playmaker. And then you look at Galvin, and when you have Luai as the chief playmaker, it frees up the 5/8 to play the natural running game, or their natural, play what they see in front of them. But again, he played the short ball, not playing out the back, and that was frustrating me watching it live on the field. So, yeah, I have no idea where Zach is, people, at all. And I don't know what he's done to himself. He's done himself a bit of mischief because he's not joining anymore. Oh, there he is.
Hello.
What happened there, mate?
No idea. Just dropped out and then wouldn't let me get back in.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about my sync, and I was talking about Galvin.
Yep.
So people listen to me yammer on and then talk about no idea what happened to you. So that'll be an interesting segment right there, people, to listen
It will
to.
be. So, yeah, well, thank you for carrying the show, mate. How'd you go? How'd you go, folks? Let us know in the comments. What were you there? You were paddling alone, mate, for about 3.5 minutes or so. How'd you hold on?
Yeah, I just talked about how my sync was Galvin.
Yep.
Mainly just for the sheer fact he made too many wrong choices. I elaborated in the 3.5 minutes that I starred in the show, so I don't need to go over again.
So I should be worried about my job? You might be the new opener.
That's too much pressure. Right, so who was your sync then?
My sync split. Well, we've both mentioned Naden and Pole each for different reasons. We know with Brent Naden, I can't have him in the centres anymore. If he can't fit into a defensive structure reliably, then he can't play in that position. That the centre is the linchpin of the decision making in the back line, and he can't be making those decisions. And Pole, for the continued little issues around the ruck, we know last year he had his issues, and he's mostly tidied that up predominantly this year. But we saw those couple of instances on the weekend. It's just small moments, and the Dragons, to their credit, were good enough to capitalise on it. But I guess as Polo continues to develop, one of his major things is going to have to be replicating Terrell in that the efforts are a weekly situation. It's not a once in a fortnight, once every 3 or 4 games, I have a 100%, 110% effort game where I'm effort on effort on effort. That needs to be every game. So, the sooner he learns to do that, the sooner we can get rid of some of those little lapses through the centre.
I'll tell you one thing too. The thing that I've noticed about Pole that's annoying me a little bit is how he always seems to get flustered or frustrated that he should get a penalty, and then he's got to slow play the ball.
Yeah.
He gets up, he looks at the ref, and he's like, oh, come on, and then plays the ball. I'm like, I get it. You think you deserve a penalty, but it hasn't been blown. Play to the whistle, get up and play the ball quick. Because what you're doing is you're allowing that half a second for the defense to get set.
Yeah.
And that half a second can be the difference between creating the 2 and 3 overlap.
It does, and especially somebody who prides themselves on having a quick play the ball speed, being able to get through and find that front and get up relatively quickly. And he's a bit of a crawler. He's a ruck crawler. He'll get people. He'll get one of the markers out of position quite often. You see Appy capitalise on that from time to time when Pole's played it. He's wasting one of his valuable assets by doing that, to your point. And it's a low percentage play. If the ruck's an issue, the ref's going to get it by the time you've gotten up. So they might as well wriggle and fight and leave that in the ref's hands.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, what we're doing here is we're nitpicking.
Yeah.
We both are extremely pleased with Pole this season. We thought he has been phenomenal. Like the duo of May and Pole as our props is, in my eyes, probably top 5 in the league.
Best in the league.
Yeah. So it's not like we're bad mouthing him. We're just saying that these are the things, if he wants to be that elite footballer that we know he can be, he improves these, and he's far and beyond anything we could ever hope for from him.
That being said, 14 runs, 126 metres, still good output. And yeah, like you said, he's one of the most improved in the squad. So I guess we just see how much talent he's got and where he could go. He could be anything. So those little areas need to improve. And look, if you're in the 17 and your defensive whatevers are leading to points or costing us points, then the blowtorch deserves to be on you. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Terrell May or Fanua Pole or whatever. Individuals within the side, even when we win, need to be held accountable for that.
Yep, absolutely. So here's an interesting question. We're a third of the way through the season. Who is your most improved? Now, we obviously can't bring in those that we've recruited, but of that starting 17 who was in the squad last year, who is your most improved?
I appreciate that you've given me
zero notice.
Zero notice, but also you've given me the white chess side, so I've got to go first.
I've already got mine. If you want me to go first,
do I run a horse out early, bait you, dance around in an L shape, or do I throw a pawn out? Do I throw a double pawn jump early? Let's think. I'm going to go left.
No idea. Is that chess?
Chess, mate. Come on. What are you doing?
I watch football. I don't play chess.
I'm going to go the unheralded wizard, the Habibi himself, Alex Twal.
I'm going the other Habibi. I'm going Dewey.
Because there's another, Seyfarth is as well. I think they're all Lebanese.
Is Habibi.
Yeah, he's Lebanese.
Really? Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Does not look Lebanese.
Twally, mate, output. Let's actually do him justice and get his. I'll get his player stats up for the year just to be accurate. In the interest of accuracy.
If you can do that for Dewey too, that'd be good because I didn't bring that up.
I didn't vote for Dewey, so you can do that your fucking self. Thank you very much.
That's not very nice.
That was the point. 9 appearances for Twally this year, scoring 0 tries. Shocking, I know. 14 tackle breaks, 321 post-contact. We've got there 11 hit-ups, 9 offloads. That's 1 a game. That's up for him, big time. Tackle efficiency there in the 98% range, and he's averaging 99 running metres. But I think the big thing with Twiley is we're getting a bit more intensity out of him. There's a little bit of footwork at the line. There's a big threat. His timing, you know, back in behind the markers off Appy in particular is very, very strong. And I think that the other thing that he does quite well, we talk about Samuela doing clean-up work on his edge. I think through the centre, Twiley really locks that up quite well. And although he's not the most fleet-footed prop in the history of the planet, he is relatively light on his feet, and he does have relatively okay footwork. I don't think he has a big top speed. He's more of a 4-speed diesel truck engine, I think. But he can move, and he locks it up relatively well, and laterally he's not lacking too much in the centre. So he's just doing a good job. He's a good role player, Alex Twelve. And I'm of the suspicion of late that we're actually not being told that he's more propping late in the first half, and Terrell May is more locking as we start to see Terrell come in for a bit more ball playing in through the centre.
Yeah,
and so I think
definitely evident.
Yeah, so I think they're switching roles as the game wears on.
Yeah.
So they're all middles essentially, I guess. But I guess that's in a way how we're getting around his lack of ball playing. 12.
So we've got a Forbes Ferrari and we've got a diesel truck in the side.
Twally. Diesel truck.
The Twally.
Yeah.
We'll see. For me, if I've just put up the stats for Dewey.
Yeah.
So 8 appearances, 2 tries, 25 goals. Don't get me wrong, his goal kicking has been so good. Like we've been scoring so many tries out wide. And I was watching it too.
He's missed some annoying ones though, which is a bugger.
The one that hit the post, yeah, that was really annoying.
And the Brisbane ones.
Yeah. But the ones that he was making on the weekend, I was watching him really, really closely. And he keeps his head down as he follows through, so it's very much like a golf shot.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person that does that is actually Appy as well. So I'm wondering if there's a little bit going on there.
I think a lot of kickers do that, mate.
I haven't seen a lot do it, if I'm being honest.
I have, but we might be watching different, I don't know, sports.
But okay, so he's had 3 try assists from centre. Oh, did he have any when he played in the halves? I don't think so. 3 line breaks, 8 tackle breaks, 166 receipts. But this is where he is the most improved for me. 109 tackles made, 14 missed tackles at an 88% tackle efficiency.
Which, for centres, we know. Yeah.
In the centres is so important.
Yeah.
That's why he's the most improved for me.
You're aiming for 80s, above 85 is good. 90s is elite. But what that also doesn't mention, though, is his reads this year. Like, his ability to read and shut down plays has been brilliant. I can barely remember him, touch wood, missing too many reads. And if he does, there's cover. So it's almost a low percentage shoot where he knows he's got back sweep behind him, getting across and cutting off the threat. So I wish he had have grabbed the intercept on the weekend. That would have been nice to see him
that would have been
spread
great.
away again. But I agree, mate. He's been wonderful.
And it's funny that, before you were talking about Nader not fitting our defensive structure, it has fitted Dewey to a T so perfectly. So,
and it's just good to see. Like, it's good to see Dewey happy to play a role and happy to be in a Tigers side that's winning football games. And I don't know if it's forever. And I'm assuming. I'm not assuming anything. All I can assume, I guess, is what I see in front of me. But he has clearly, to some degree, put aside the want to be a half, the obsession of knowing or describing himself as a half, and just said, look, this is the role I'm going to play. I'm going to become good at learning the structure as a centre defensively, learning how to play as a centre, learning at getting better to be a centre, because that's what this side needs, and this is the side that I'm in. To see him go through the ACLs, to see him then finally find a role within the squad, and he's got it now. Like, he's got the role. Well, you spoke about locking him into left centre, and until there's a possible superstar upgrade on the horizon, if that were to happen. But in the meantime, you'd agree that he's where he needs to be.
I mentioned a few weeks ago, I don't even think that side needs an upgrade.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's just pleasing to see all that stuff, and then the fact that we're winning games and he gets to enjoy it. So look, if he's made peace with the fact that he's a centre and he's always been a centre, then yeah, fingers crossed he can start to sort of enjoy that being the role that he plays in this football side.
Absolutely.
All the evidence says that it does. He looks like he's loving his footy.
Yeah, it looks like he's having fun. Looks like he's really enjoying it. Looks like he's part of that. Like, it's funny. We were talking just today, actually, just on our chat, because there's that whole conversation about, David Fifita not, obviously not earning his money and wanting to play X, Y, Z and all that jazz. And I floated the question, would you pursue him and move Sam to the right? And your response was, no way. He is not a team player. Dewey is. Dewey is loving being part of this team. You can tell.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, look, on the David Fifita thing, we haven't heard anything.
No, absolutely not. This is us speculating.
No. But, yeah, it's back to Luai's Instagram post, team first. I don't want Richo to buy anybody anymore that isn't team first. I don't care who you are. If you're Lachlan Galvin or David Fifita or Kalen Ponga, I wouldn't want Kalen Ponga right now. He doesn't strike me as a team first person. The way that he carries on sometimes and around negotiations and bits and pieces, he doesn't strike me as a team first person. It's not to say these people don't give their all on the field, particularly week to week, but people whose entire mindset is about the team rather than having it split with individual goals. You can't begrudge people for that, but I want to support a side, and I'm thrilled to be supporting a side that has that team first mentality, and no individual is bigger than the side. So if someone comes on the market like a David Fifita, whose very problem appears to be, by all reports, that he wants to play on the other fucking side of the field in the same position whilst earning $1 million doing it to take 9 runs for 58 metres or whatever he did in Q Cup on the weekend, then I don't want him. You mentioned you'd mentioned that you think he's another Dave Taylor.
No, it was Todd. That was my brother.
Well, I gave you an opportunity to take some credit for something rather clever, and you just.
Hey, I'm a nice guy. I'll let him own that one, and it's true. It really is. Think about all the talent Dave Taylor possessed, but he just wasn't a team player at all. With every team player, Broncos, Souths, Titans. Did he play for another team? I don't think he did.
He played for a lot of teams. But the other point too, I know he played for the Capras because I remember seeing him in a jersey, looking rather rotund.
At the teams, yeah.
Yeah, but interesting how their careers have gone similar paths in a way. Not so much the bouncing around to different clubs, but breakout star early on, blowing people away. Early Queensland jersey run. They both had a couple of games in Queensland's colours. And then, just sort of fall off into obscurity a little bit. Now, David Fifita is still quite young. He's only 25. He's the same age as Terrell May. They could both play, well into their 30s if they wanted. They could be around for the better part of a decade, the pair of them. I know I brought him in there, but, David Fifita in particular, he burst onto the scene when he was quite young. So is it a crossroads situation? We see that with players all the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the reasons that we've heard, he's on the outer. And I don't rate Des, by the way, at all. I think he's a lunatic. But all the evidence points to he's not the type of person that we need. And I think we've got a strong enough side at the moment that the next couple of additions need to be very, very, very deliberate, not only in terms of positional fills, but personnel fills. When you're desperate and you're at the bottom of the ladder, any upgrade's an upgrade. That's why you're buying your BJ Leiluas and you're buying your broken Chris McQueens and your old Josh Reynoldses and all these types of players and your Madalinas and your Packers. Should I keep going? You buy them because you hope, right? But now that we've actually got a decent core of a side, you don't want to bring anything in like the Roosters have done, where in the attempt to lift their side, they've actually pulled themselves backwards because the culture hasn't fit or the person isn't right for what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
That.
Are we talking about Brandon Smith or Dominic Young?
Go through the list. They've had issues with Spencer since he was been there as well. Terrell got let go, thank God for us, for, reasons talking about him not being a right fit or something like that. There's a variety of things that they've said. But yeah, anyway, I know that every team ideally would like to be in that situation, but I think the Tigers are finally entering a phase where we can afford to be a little bit picky in that regard.
Yep.
If it means continuing to refine this culture that the side clearly seems to be growing.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, then that, again, it was just floating the idea. But when you sort of pointed that out, and, I always thought Fafita was a huge waste of talent, but it also was like, well, he's on the Gold Coast. I mean, he's surrounded by yes men around him. Maybe getting out of the Gold Coast and getting out of Queensland could actually do him the world of good.
Yeah.
Maybe if he went to like a Raiders or someone where it's a quiet Canberra small town where culture is everything.
There was talk there for a long time about David Fafita going to the Raiders. Now, they nearly had him at one point, and I think that they were looking at he and his partner for a double for the NRLW side, and so there's been talk of him being on the move for quite a while. Obviously, he and Des don't see eye to eye for whether it's a number of reasons or whatnot. But fortunately, it's not the Titan Town podcast, so we're probably not going to talk about the inner workings and machinations of the David Fafita situation too much further. But I don't want him. I do want some.
That's how we. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Mate, is it time?
Sure. Hold on. Let me bring it all up.
So you're nice and ready as always. Lovely
always.
to see.
Always.
Yeah, you're always ready. Always ready to rock and roll.
Always, brah. There's not too many. There's only 2 games that I need to cover anyway. Let's go.
All right, mate. It must be time. Is it time? It must be time. What do you reckon? Is it time?
Do it.
Toby's weekly Pathways Roundup.
There we go. I was like...
She was on delay.
Shifty eyes. Oh, okay, so let's start with the wonderful New South Wales Cup, where we got flogged by the Dragons. Ended up being 26-60. So yeah, that's fantastic. Had tries to Lyles, Tuitupu, Mapalangi, Falls, and Jack. But then the Dragons just went on a run with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tries in the first half. And then 1, 2, 4 tries in the second. So Cody Ramsey got a double. Lachlan Elias got a double. Ben Rumble got it. I don't know who that is. Got a double. Yeah. So that sucked. So it was 40-6 at halftime.
Yeah. Can't have helped having Lachlan Elias come back, and as much as he's had his struggles in first grade, he's a first grade quality player. So having him run around in the seconds is pretty handy. I think is George going all right in the cup this year? They always tend to be relatively strong through pathways in general.
They do, don't they? They definitely do in
I'd have to have a look.
The Dragons are 4th. They definitely do in SG Ball, I know that much. So yeah, that's annoying. And it looks like we had Max Lyles playing in the centres. So that could be a reason why. So then we'll move on to Jersey Flegg, where we again got flogged by the Dragons, 56-18. So in 2 grades, we've got 116 points put on us. So that's awesome. But we had tries to Taitoa and Sakuru, and basically they just went on an absolute rampage with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tries in the first half and 5 tries in the second. It was 28-12 at halftime, ended up being 56-18.
28-12 was nearly what it was to us in first grade. It's a shame we couldn't go on with it.
Yeah, really. It was 28-12 to the Dragons, not to us.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Ah.
Saying they went on with it in the juniors and we weren't able to go on with it in seniors.
So that is pathways for this week. Again, frustrating, annoying. Those are some cricket scores that we don't want to keep happening, but as long as our first grade side's winning, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's something that may well come to an end this week. We might look ahead and go through the Melbourne Storm game, mate.
Oof.
Okay, so coming up this Sunday at 2 o'clock, the earlier game, we play down at Amy Park against the fourth-placed Storm. They are only 2 points in front of us, but the side, their
Storm.
rocking is pretty stacked, so we'll go through our side, named exactly the same as last week. It remains to be seen if there's any changes. Naden obviously in doubt with that knee and the issues around that. At the least, so we might see a Fa'atape or even a Folletti that's been named in the extended side come in. But we've got Buller, Taruva, Dewey, Naden, Staines, Galvin, Luai. May, Coruscant, Pole, Fainu of the Samwella variety, Safar, Twal, Talon, Hunt, Bird, and Sione Fainu. Sukar, Mason, Fa'atape, Folletti, and Hope are the extended squad. Now, in terms of the Storm, still no Harry Grant for them, which is beneficial for us, but the rest of them are as follows. Pappenhausen, Farlongo, Grant, Meany, Coates, Munster, Hughes are the halves. Stefano Uto Igamanu lines up against Terrell May. Prop, Bronson Garlick at 9, King, Blore, Eli Katoa, and Trent Liero. He's the lock. Wishart, McDonald, Tui, Kamakamika, and Joe Chan. You also notice that Lazarus Valepu and Nelson Asafa Solomona, those two in particular big units, they're named on the extended reserves. It remains to be seen if they might be late additions, possibly. But
well, I know Nelson's been battling those concussion issues, so potentially.
Yeah, played Q Cup for the Falcons on the weekend, I think. Got a couple of tries from what I read, so
yeah,
he must be nearing a return, surely. Mate, the road trips don't get much tougher than Melbourne in Melbourne. So
especially, well, punters don't think that either. Storm playing $1.17.
Yeah, we're pretty long. Mate, how are you seeing this game going?
The one thing you don't want to do is play the Storm after a loss. So I am not going to be optimistic on this one. I think we will lose. Again, I just want to see some fight. I'd love to just ensure that we don't, and we haven't really done that apart from maybe the Broncos game. We haven't really given up. We've fought until the death. You know, we fought for a fair chunk of that game, but we did fall off at the end.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that we're fighting the whole way through, but the Storm will outclass us. The Storm will show why they are the heavyweights this year. And I'm going to say it'll be something along the lines of 38-10.
Look, it's a bit tough. We need to come up against a side like this when we're at full strength, and that probably means Stafford Toa and Jarrell. Stafford Toa and Jarrell are back in the side, and so missing those, we are clearly under strength. You know, they are too, missing one of their spine players in Harry Grant. So it's hard. I think that we need to be full strength to have any hope. The side needs to start playing together. We need to fix the defensive issues on those edges, in particular in terms of the structure. We've spoken all year about how the fact that the structure has held up really, really well. And the only time that we've been broken down is when the structure has fallen apart because the people who have come in to replace have either been chinks in the armour or they've made poor decisions on occasion that is not within the structure that we haven't seen when the side has been fully together. It is what it is, though. The side's going to go and line up as they are. How do you go about beating them or attacking them? Look, the Storm are strong. The Storm are good. The Storm are solid. The Storm are probably premiership favourites. If not, they'd be very close with Canterbury and a few others up and around the mark there. But look, mate, they lost the Raiders, a strong, tough Raiders side last week. They beat the Bunnies by 8 points a week prior, and then the Dolphins game gave them a touch-up in round 7. So, look.
They're not invincible.
They're not invincible. They've had a couple of solid wins. At times, they've looked shit hot, absolutely blistering. And you hope you don't get one of those afternoons because they're just about untouchable when they do. But how do you go about getting them?
Oh. See, the issue with the Storm is there's no one person you focus on. You kind of need to ensure your line speed is consistent and on point in the entire game. You need to put pressure on the Hugheses. You need to put pressure on the Munsters. You need to ensure that you're watching that sweep from Pappenhausen because he's just blistering. But then you also, they were playing a fair bit of Farlongo kind of roaming at times as well. Meany roams at times. Kicks to Coates. For me, the only real way that we can potentially compete with them and put them on the back foot is we need to bury them in the middle. If we can bury them in the middle, it makes it a lot harder for these strike men to be able to get the space that they need to do what they can do.
Yeah.
If May can just topple Steph and Pole can get back to his blistering form, Appy needs to run more than he has been.
Hunt.
Hunt needs to come on with some intent.
We need to use De Silva wisely as well around that too. He needs more minutes.
Yeah, I'm getting his minutes have started to reduce again, and it's really frustrating.
I think it's just been a week-by-week basis, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he came out and got 30, 35 this week. But I think he needs to be used if we're going up the middle. I think that's probably your best bet. I think, and with due respect, knowing it's still Melbourne, I think the least amount of class in that side is probably through the middle. So that's where you attack, particularly with no Harry Grant in there. We saw that Liero had an off game on the weekend, got a dressing down, gave away two key penalties. And so he may be a bit tentative to push the line too much. And he's someone who usually is he's the king of the wrestle in the middle. He'll hold you down, he'll manipulate, he'll play around. So if he's a little bit gun shy and locked there, you might be able to get a hold of him that way. Mate, I'm with you. Bang down the front door and just focus all the energy on collapsing that middle third. The only other thing I would say would be just offload like your life depends on it. If we're outside of our own 40 and you see an opportunity, offload. Because I think that's how you disrupt the Storm and their structures is that second phase play. We've got more than enough talent to be able to capitalise on it and speed and whatnot as well. So that's what I'm aiming for. I'm not looking at set plays or anything like that. We'll just get absolutely gobbled up, particularly with a couple of our first choice starters in our back line. So yeah, I'm thinking what you're talking about, but I'm bringing as much second phase as I can. I'm giving Terrell a license to go hard with them. Same with Twally. He's shown a propensity to offload.
Yeah, he does.
Sione.
Absolutely. The other thing too is their back row is just so powerful. Blaw's obviously having career best form the last 2 years. So more so this year. Katoa's just, God, he's scary more than anything. But he runs an amazing line, tackles hard. Yeah, I think the only way to really, again, just to compete with them is, like you said, collapse the middle if we can. The one thing I did want to bring up, now we're talking about the middles competing with each other. Now, you and I were quite upset when Steph left last year. We actually had people commenting saying we should have stopped whinging about it, but we can do what we want. We started this podcast. But I just wanted to bring the two up together in terms of stats because we lost Steph, but we got May, and arguably we won in this
arguably.
Sort of swap.
Did you say arguably we won?
Okay, we won.
Mate, do you need to even mention the stats?
I want to because I want to highlight it.
Terrell's close to putting out 2 Stephs every week.
So this is Steph's stats. He's had 8 appearances for 1 try, 29 tackle breaks. He averages 9.5 hit-ups a game. He's got 334.9 post-contact meters, 8 offloads, 181 tackles made. He does have a tackle efficiency of 96%, which is pretty bloody good. Averages 103 running meters. He's totaled 831. So that's honestly not horrible. But then you look at Terrell. 9 appearances for 1 try. 29 tackle breaks. So that's even. They kind of have the same tackle breaks. He averages 18 hit-ups.
Steph's always been a big tackle breaker. He's big on that first contact.
He is.
Yep.
486 post-contact meters, 32 offloads to 8, 352 tackles made. I think he had 181. 97%, so he's got less, but he's tripled or doubled his tackles made in tackle efficiency. 180 running meters to 100. He's, I think, what did I say? 800 and something for Steph for total running meters. Terrell's doubled that.
Yeah.
1,620 total running meters. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Holy shit, that's ridiculous. I didn't even, when I started doing that, I was like, oh, yeah, this will be good fun. But that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. And it'd be news to nobody that he's putting out the numbers that he's putting out. I think, though, that moving forward, if this is the new status quo, and it seems to be the case, that our side has got to think about tertiary and secondary ways to use those numbers to our advantage beyond just what he's putting out on the field. Because if he's able to put out the output of 2 props, that effectively should buy us a spare spot in our 17. And so we've flirted with the idea before of running Latu and Talon on the bench at certain times, or 2 small forwards. And with the minutes that those boys are playing, particularly Pollet, if he can keep his output up like he did earlier in the season, that does open up the possibility to do that. And if you don't do it, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to carry the two smalls on the bench like I'm talking about. But if you don't utilise the extra output of those blokes, then you're essentially wasting that extra spot, because you might as well just put another prop to do the other half of what he's doing anyway, if it's at the same quality. And no, it's not. It's all quality stuff too. That's why he's a weapon, and he is an absolute weapon. But I'd like to see, as we move forward, a little bit of creativity around the bench. I think that Benji's bench work, to be honest, needs work still. It's one of his probably slowest, I don't know, one of the slowest adaptations so far with his coaching that we've seen. You know, very rarely do I get to end of a game and go, gee, he nailed that bench rotation. And I know that he has done it on occasion, but I just think it can be used so much better in so many different ways. I like the makeup of the bench, but just how he's and when he's using them, it's his prerogative. But anyway, sidebar.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mate, have you got a bit of a bold prediction for this game? I know you've given a scoreline already.
I've given you the scoreline. Let's try to think. Oh, it's going to be a bold one. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to think that Naden's going to have a cracker at the centers this week. I think it's going to be quite evident to the coaching staff what they need to fix with him, and he's going to work hard this week, and he's going to fix the majority of it.
Okay.
So
I reckon Sione is going to have a big game from the bench, and he's going to get some big minutes for whatever reason. He'll get out there.
you really
He'll
want
be
Sione to do well, don't you?
I do. He'll be impressive, and I think he'll do some good stuff. In terms of a score line, I like to think we get close. I like to think we come out hot and maybe get up, maybe a 2-try lead early, maybe 10 or so nil, and the game goes from there. I'm going to say we get them 26-24 in an all-time boil over. In an all-time boil over. Not golden point, but I reckon we get them.
Just so you remember, you know what this means if we do.
What?
3 wins in a row for the first time since 2019, 2018.
It's been like 7 years or something.
Yeah. So we had an opportunity to do it, and then we blew it at the start of the year.
And we've timed it with probably the hardest road trip in rugby league at the moment.
Yep.
So, well, why not throw caution to the wind? It's not like us to do it when we have the chance to do it. So we'll see how we go.
Well, I mean, if we did do that, I'm just having a look at the draw. We do that before we play the Bunnies. So we could potentially get 4 in a row.
We could, yeah, big game against the Bunnies the following week. Fingers crossed we can maybe get Star back for that one and see how we go. Then we're into the bye, and then we've got the likes of, fingers crossed, Skelton and Latu and whatnot due to return from those longer term injuries. So clearly that extra bye is what they're holding off on. So that's a positive, I guess. Excuse me. And I'm assuming that, I'm hoping not, but I'll be honest, I am every chance. I think we are every chance of sitting Star out that extra couple of weeks too, and not seeing him named for Rabbits, even if he's right to go. Originally, it was a 1 to 2 weeker, but I guess I'm just speculating. I have to wait and see.
Look, let's say we do go up against Melbourne. It wouldn't make sense to bring any of them back at all, unless they absolutely had to, because that extra 2 weeks, the extra week plus the bye gives them 2 weeks to get fully fit. And we know with hamstrings, especially, I'm talking about Skelton here, but with hamstrings, it's just, they're so temperamental. You need to do everything you can in terms of rehab. And we obviously...
The re-injury rate is the issue with hamstrings. Hamstrings and calves, posterior chain, they're just notorious at re-injury. You do have to rehab them. You look as far, we've mentioned before, the chronic names that have dealt with them, even in recent times. Brooks, Mitchell, Turbo. All these guys. Bradman Best had them for a long time. So, they are a pain in the neck, but hamstrings are very, very rehabilitatable, if that's a word. You've just got to put you've just got to put in the work. So, mate, well, that's about it on the Storm game. Anything else you want to mention before we get into the PSAs and sail off?
Nothing I want to mention, but Richo came out a couple of weeks ago saying that we've got a couple of big signings coming up that he's going to name. Radio silence. Just name the fucking signing.
Just, mate, just hold your horses.
I'm sick of being patient.
We're 5 and 4.
Have you heard anything?
Toby, we're 5 and 4, Toby.
Yeah.
Look, the names that get thrown around are the constant ones that have been floating around. Is Kobe Hetherington back on the table? Is Taylor May through his rehab and he's going to do a TNT deal? Have they done a deal for Kaipi's Paul behind the scenes? There's all this sort of stuff that everyone's mentioning. I don't have anything extra on it. There's another couple of names under the radar as well, but I don't know if there's any truth to any of them. I think we're looking at Brisbane, potentially in the outside backs there, maybe a Dean Mariner.
I thought you were going to say a Stags. He hasn't re-signed yet, has he?
That would be nice. A get like that, but
maybe Stags doesn't like match, and so he wants out and he wants back in New South Wales.
Maybe, but we need a second row. We need a centre at the least. We probably need another middle forward. We need a lock. There's a few spots that we still can fill, which is again exciting because we're 5 and 4 and we've got money and spaces to fill to improve the squad even further. If it's second rowers we're after, I'd be looking over in New Zealand. They've got a glut of quality second rowers coming through. And even you pick up a couple, maybe you pick up a Capewell, although he's pretty awful these days. And then you pick up an up-and-comer.
I wouldn't even think about it.
Or you go for one of the big ones. Yeah, not sure. I heard a whisper of someone had mentioned Nanai. I don't know where his contract sits. He's starting at the moment.
He just signed a 4-year deal. He signed a 4-year deal last year.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they also let Fino Fuiaki go as well to keep he and Helam Lukey. So, yeah, look, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And we will have to wait and see. As we know, as Richo is at pains to constantly mention, we don't hear anything out because it's only he and Benji that talk about it. So it's the best way to work, and they are impenetrable, I must say.
Bloody oath they are. Jesus.
And you know it's not an Isaac Moses client because we haven't heard anything about it.
I don't think they'll deal with Isaac Moses anymore.
What I'm hoping for is a Talon to Silva re-signing. That's what I want to see first and foremost. As a show of faith in him and as his show of faith in the club. And it's the pathway moving forward because he and Haywood, once Appy goes in a couple of years, he and Haywood are the future if they want it as a 1-2 punch.
Apparently there's talk of Appy extending for another year.
There has been talk of it, yeah. But even still, Talon De Silva is 19 years of age, and he's quite experienced now in terms of other players his age. And, he's coming along quite well. We both agree he should be getting more minutes, but, bide your time. The best careers were very rarely people that burst onto the scene at 18, 19 and rode the highs the whole way through. Now, the best careers were more often than not
Can't
the
all
ones
be
that had.
Brad Fittler.
Yeah, exactly. Were the ones, and that's why I didn't say none of them. But the majority of them, people ply their trade down low. They get their opportunity, and then by that stage they become mature footballers, and they've learned. If Talon's learning on the run off, one of the best to do it in the last quarter of a century, like where else would you rather be? So I don't buy into any whispers that people were looking around him. I know Parramatta need a hooker, and I know that Galvin's obviously going there, but I think he's just held in such high regard at the Tigers, and he loves the club from what we hear, that I just don't really buy into the fact that he'd be going anywhere.
No.
I do want to hear a re-signing though. So
yeah, just to put us at ease. Just to put us at ease.
Exactly right. Yeah, much like the Macassini one did last year. It was just nice to hear Gunn Jr. extending with the club. So,
yep.
All right, mate. That's it for the evening on that discussion, mate. We're going to jump to the PSAs now. So all West Tigers media is good media in our eyes. The West Tigers podcast, the West Tigers Life podcast, West Tigers Faithful podcast. Get on over and support them. The Ambush on Facebook, westtigersforum.com. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Apple, and
that's it.
Spotify.
Hey.
There you go. See, you missed that one. Get over and support, like, share, all that good stuff if you like the show and you support the show. Thanks, as always, to our sponsor, Best On Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They will not steer you wrong. Anything digital marketing related. They are the people that you want to turn to. They help you out at a sticky spot, as they have with us several times late this evening. Not with my camera dropping out, though. We managed to figure that out ourselves, and you held down the fort, so well done.
Fix your bloody camera, would you?
Do you want to turn your hand at hosting the show next week? I think you do a bang-up job.
Well, where are you going?
Nowhere, but I'll sit back on the other end. It'll be Toby at this end, Zach at that end for once. And I can just sit back and just let you just run the show, and I'll just answer your questions.
I have no idea what to talk about. I just follow your lead.
Well, mate, look, what better opportunity to learn? What do you reckon?
No.
I smell a Tigers victory against the Storm on Sunday afternoon. Nothing more to say other than go the mighty West Tigers.
Up the Tigers.